All right, we're gonna wrap up the month here. What a month it was. A month of April with some talk about the new guy, Raheem Morris. And a lot of people are asking me, when is Raheem finally going to be introduced by the 49ers? When is he going to have his first press conference? I actually would expect it to be in a week. 49ers have their rookie mini camp on Thursday to begin May, Thursday and Friday, and I would think that on day one of that rookie minicamp, we will hear from San Francisco's new defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, who has such a fascinating background. And the picture that I can show you to illustrate that background comes right here. That is Raheem Morris. That is Sean McVay. And obviously, they are wearing Rams gear. Now, what's funny is you go back to this photo, look at the name in the background. It says McVay. That's John McVay. That is Sean's grandfather. Well, Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator of the Rams for 3 seasons starting in 2021. The first year they won the Super Bowl, and they had a big play defense that first year. Sean McVay is on the record talking about that team, and everybody talks about Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, people talk about Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on the defensive side of the ball, but I think that an underrated aspect of what Ramsey and what Aaron Donald were able to do on that defense for the Rams, they delivered in the biggest moments. Typically, it was fueled with the pass rush, right? And they also had Von Miller on that team. They traded for Von Miller. But what Raheem Morris was able to do as the coordinator of that Rams team was special given his background. And this is something that the 49ers can look forward to. And I think this is something that makes Raheem Morris such an intriguing fit at this point in time. And now we're going to talk about how all the new pieces for San Francisco fit into his vision. But he came from a decidedly 4-3 Tampa 2 background. I've said this many times before. I think it's one of the cooler connections of the 49ers today. Raheem Morris was an assistant DB coach at Tampa Bay when John Lynch was a player. Raheem and Kyle also overlapped with Tampa. So Raheem basically bridged John Lynch as a player and Kyle Shanahan as a first time NFL coach in Tampa Bay. They're all in that program, in that organization at some point in the early 2000s. But anybody who's familiar with Tampa Bay knows that they ran a 4-down front. The Tampa 2 defense originated there with Monty Kiffin, Lane's dad, right? I mean, it's such a historic spot in the evolution of defensive football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is obviously different than a Vic Fangio style defense. And 49ers fans should be very familiar with a Vic Fangio style defense because Vic was their defensive coordinator when Jim Harbaugh was around. That is a 3-4 defense. There's going to be different stuff happening on the back end as well. I mean, it's philosophically, these are opposed philosophies. Now, of course, even opposed philosophies in football can still boil down to some common principles like win with your pass rush, and that makes the job for the back end easier. But as far as fronts go, the Fangio defense and the 4-3, the Tampa 2, those defenses are different. When Raheem Morris went to the Rams in 2011, not even a decade after his time in Tampa Bay, the Rams had run a Brandon Staley system in 2020. Brandon Staley developed under Vic Fangio in Denver. So, and in Chicago, I believe as well in 2018. Anyway, Brandon Staley elevated to the Rams defensive coordinator in 2020. Then he left to become the coach of the Chargers. So Raheem Morris replaced Brandon Staley, and Sean McVay told Raheem that he wanted him to continue running the Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley 3-4. And Sean McVay, Mike says that our sound is not good. He says it sounds ultra filtered. Well, let me fix the sound then. Maybe I'm on the wrong mic here. Give me 1 second. No, we should be on the right one. I don't know what to do, Mike. Chat saying it's just Mike. Yeah, it must just be you, Mike. I think it sounds fine. Is the chat saying it sounds fine? because the microphone is completely on here. Oh, here, hold on. I have something I could fix. I have something I could fix really quickly. Now. How about now? Okay, good. It should be good now. Let me know if it sounds better now. I think I had a Bluetooth speaker connected, and I don't think that that was good for the audio quality. Anyway, we go back to this. Sean McVay, Raheem Morris in LA. McVay told Morris, I want you to run a scheme that you hadn't been familiar with coaching before. I know that you're a 4 down front kind of guy, but I want you to run the 3-4 with the Rams. And they won the Super Bowl. And they won the Super Bowl in large part because of the big play penchant of that defense. Since those years in LA, Raheem Morris has gone back to running 4 down front stuff, and he's mixed in a lot of his 3-4 principles with 4-3 defenses. He loves running 5-man fronts, which are aligned in a 3-4 philosophy so that he can earn one-on-ones for certain players up front. And he's going to bring some of those 5-man front 3-4 rooted principles to the 49ers 4-3. The same reasons that Sean McVay was good with hiring Raheem Morris back in 2021 apply to Kyle Shanahan hiring Raheem Morris in 2026. The guy is scheme agnostic. He's smart enough to be able to work with different ideas and meld them all together. And because of that, the 49ers have been able to tailor the personnel over the course of the player acquisition periods, free agency, and now, of course, the NFL draft to fit a profile that Raheem Morris can evolve with this defense. So let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball. Here we have it on the 49ers 90-man depth chart. And this right here will show you anybody that is highlighted either in green or in teal is a newcomer for the 49ers defense. What was really neat this offseason, the first big hint that the 49ers gave us regarding Raheem Morris was when they re-signed Dre Greenlaw, which emphasized that San Francisco was going to continue to emphasize the linebacker position. When they re-signed Dre Greenlaw and when they hired Matt Eberflus to be their assistant head coach on the defensive side of the ball, the 49ers signaled that the linebacker position would remain at the central core of what they're doing defensively. You've seen so many other defensive schemes around the league de-emphasize linebacker. I think that's not the trend anymore, but I think it was for several years. And the 49ers took advantage of that, and they rose to the top of the league in how they developed linebackers and how good that unit was. They had Warner, they had Greenlaw, they had Azeez Al-Shaair, who just got paid by the Houston Texans. Well, Matt Eberflus is a linebackers guy. Matt Eberflus, was with Monty Kiffin, actually, the Tampa 2 founder, in Dallas as their linebackers coach for a long time. Matt Eberflus was the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys last year. He has been brought in to, I think, I don't want to say the rigid base of the 4-3 that the 49ers have now run for a decade, but I think that he's there to maintain San Francisco's tie to the strong linebacker position. And that first signing of Dre Greenlaw for, what was it, $7 million guaranteed this season, maybe $6 million guaranteed, showed us that San Francisco was serious about reinvesting and doubling down in that linebacker position. We'll see how Nick Martin does if he's the one that takes over that Sam position. We'll see if Tatum Bethune still has some playing time in him. I know that the 49ers traded D. Winters away. It's not like he was a great linebacker for this team. I think it was okay, but obviously expendable. They could probably raise the ceiling if Nick Martin can develop, but they will be rooted in that linebacker position. The question then becomes, how are they going to approach the fronts in front of the linebackers? And I think that the addition of Romello Height is a very, very clear indicator that the 49ers are moving to greater adaptability in 5-man fronts under Raheem Morris. They ran 5-man fronts about 8% of the time in 2025 under Robert Saleh. I think it was like 29 or 30 snaps on the season. What the 5-man front does is that you can pick, especially if you've got 2 studs up front, guys that you really want to isolate in one-on-one situations because you're going to be confident they're going to win those one-on-one situations. 5-man fronts can change the blocking numbers up front so that the math is in your favor to get at least one of those 5 guys a one-on-one. That's at its core, one of those 2 guys, I should say, a one-on-one. For the Rams in 2021, Aaron Donald and Von Miller were the 2 guys that you wanted working one-on-one. The 49ers went out this offseason, and obviously they're expecting Nick Bosa back. They got Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins last offseason. They got Keon White ahead of the trade deadline. They got CJ West last offseason. But the central core, the key piece that the 49ers were able to grab over the course of this offseason is Osa Odighizuwa. Because now with Osa and with Nick Bosa back, and now theoretically too with Romello Height, and we're going to talk about him in a second, the 49ers actually have pivot points that they can unleash in one-on-one situations if they can create those situations with appropriately timed 5-man fronts. If Nick is double teamed, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to get Osa a single team. Romello Height is going to come in pass rushing situations. So you're going to have Bosa and Romello Height as edge rushers. You're going to have Osa Odighizuwa and probably Mykel Williams as your 2 interior rushers. Chris Kasarik is still going to have probably carte blanche with how he rotates these pass rushers, but now they're going to be working within the sphere of what Raheem Morris can bring to the table, and that incorporates some of these 5-man front outside linebacker drop tendencies. So this is why I've changed up the depth chart a little bit. Romello Height's only 239 pounds. This is the 49ers second rounder. They have said now multiple times that Romello Height, under new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, is going to be doing some dropping into coverage. The 49ers have a 5-man front. Romello Height, not necessarily going to have his hand in the dirt. He's going to be able to create some confusion, step back, and be a guy in coverage. Again, 239 pounds is not heavy for an edge rusher. And people are saying, well, Romello Height's probably going to gain weight. I don't think so. I think they want Romello in the 230s, rushing the quarterback. This is not exactly like the Bryce Huff situation. Now, again, defensive principles, no matter what your front, are rooted in commonality. You need speed to get after a quarterback. You need speed to power to properly push offensive tackles back into the quarterback's lap. You need to affect the quarterback regardless if you're in a 3-4 or in a 4-3. So yes, Bryce Huff retiring as a speed rusher at 245, 250 pounds. It's somebody the 49ers needed to replace with another speed rusher who can operate speed to power. But they have gone for a slightly different archetype. Romello Height is not just a plug-and-play replacement for Bryce Huff. He's a little bit different. We already know that Bryce Huff is not a good drop-in coverage kind of guy because he signed with the Philadelphia Eagles after his time with the New York Jets, and he wasn't good in a Vic Fangio defense. Fangio was literally the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. So I don't know if Huff would have stuck around for the 49ers had the 49ers brought in Raheem Morris and he hadn't retired. I think that could have been a trade to the Tennessee Titans so that Huff could stay with Robert Saleh. So it worked out that Huff retired and the 49ers used that second-round draft pick on somebody like Romello Height, who's going to be a Sam linebacker flex. That's what I've got here listed on the depth chart. He will drop into coverage at a lighter weight than Bryce Huff. The 49ers will have more variability with their fronts under Raheem Morris. But when you do that, you open yourself up to some more one-on-ones. And I think somebody like Osa Odighizuwa will benefit. I think somebody like Nick Bosa will benefit. And then somebody like Grayson Halton, the rookie out of Oklahoma, can also benefit. He is a clone of Osa Odighizuwa. You got 2 similar type of players. You've got your big run-stopping defensive tackles right here in Alfred Collins and CJ West. You've got your 2 lighter, explosive defensive tackles here in Osa Odighizuwa and Grayson Halton. Then you've got Ephesians Prysock. And you've added Prysock, you've added Jack Jones, you've added Nate Hobbs. Jack Jones was a really good corner in zone coverage last year, not good in man coverage. Raheem Morris and his defenses, and this is where it gets really hard to identify, but Raheem Morris has brought in a new DB coach. They let Daniel Bullocks go. He's gone to the Packers. Jerry Gray is the 49ers' new DB coach. The 49ers ran zone about 75% of the time last year, in line for what you would expect from Robert Saleh. So, will the 49ers continue to run zone 75% of the time, or are we going to see one of the biggest changes in 49ers coverage tendencies since 2019 when Joe Woods came in and they started running a lot more quarters, which is essentially man, right? I think so. And I go back and I look at the Falcons in recent years under Raheem Morris, and I know that they had some more veteran safety DB talent. I get that. But the Falcons were about a 50-50 team between zone and man. Will the ratio go to 50-50 for the 49ers? Maybe not. Maybe they'll go from 75% zone to 66% zone. Maybe they'll kind of split that difference, right? Maybe it's going to be about 2/3 of the time. And that, the more zone they run, the better it is for a free agent pickup like Jack Jones. The more man the 49ers run, the better it might be for one of their rookies who's fighting to be the third cornerback with Jack Jones, like Ephesians Pricesock. 6'3". I think he could press in coverage. He could run as well. He's under 4.5 speed. It will be fascinating to see exactly what the coverage percentage delineation of the 49ers is and who that favors at some of these positions. I do know that they love Upton Stout and that he could play in whatever scheme, but he's going to need a size complement. Well, that means that Upton Stout's only, 5'8" or 5'9"? If teams are running a ton of 3 tight end stuff, if they're running a lot of big tight end stuff, it's going to be tough for a 5'8", 5'9" guy in the slot like Upton Stout. You're going to need a taller, big slot cornerback. And that's what the 49ers had last year. They had basically Jason Pinnock was running the 49ers big slot position. So this year, I think they want a little bit more coverage adaptability at big slot. And I think they're going to come at that from a cornerback perspective. So I think Nate Hobbs, who's been better inside than outside, is going to be the front runner for big slot for San Francisco. But that's where we come to the most interesting potential Raheem Morris wild card. And this is one that may not last. It may take more than a year. And that's the Rover right here in Jaden Duggar. And I can't wait to make a dedicated video on Jaden Duggar. But this is the linebacker in title. We'll put it that way. The linebacker in title, 5th-round pick out of the University of Louisiana. Somebody who played safety at Georgetown, was an edge rusher and a Sam linebacker his first year for the Ragin' Cajuns, Louisiana Lafayette, and then moved to a stack linebacker position like Fred Warner. I put the weak side linebacker spot here at the bottom to blend in with the secondary because I think that Jaden Duggar can help the 49ers in a big nickel spot or in a safety spot if necessary. I don't know if that's going to happen just this next year. I don't know how much development Jaden Duggar has, but I know the 49ers are intrigued as hell by the multiple versatile physical skill set of this guy. And how far Raheem Morris takes this, not only with Duggar, but with some of his cornerbacks like Diamador Lenore, when we talk about man coverage, Ephesians Pricesock, if he does develop, Upton Stout, Nate Hobbs. How far Raheem Morris takes the adaptability on the back end is going to define his tenure as the 49ers defensive coordinator. If it's mainly zone and guys are staying in place, well, it's going to be similar to what we saw under Robert Saleh and a lot of the proteges of Robert Saleh. But the league is changing on the offensive side of the field, especially in the 49ers' own division. The Rams ran 13 personnel with 3. That means 1 back, 3 tight ends, 30.5% of the time last year. I'm going to get into this with the video because I think the 49ers might have something up their sleeve as well. But Mike McDaniel, no longer with the Dolphins, but he was with the Dolphins last year. He had the ex-49er Daniel Brunskill on his team. He ran him as a 3rd tight end. I think Mike McDaniel saw what Sean McVay was doing in LA with the 3 tight ends, and he moved one of his offensive linemen, his athletic former tight end and college offensive lineman, Daniel Brunskill, to the third tight end position and started creating mismatches against these defenses and started compromising some of the rules of these defenses and started really putting the feet to the fire, right? Because these defenses didn't have the size to necessarily match up. So how are the 49ers going to combat the Rams and other teams that come out in 13 personnel a whole heck of a lot of the time? Saw a record in as many, I think it was 21 tight ends drafted over 7 rounds this year. I think teams are going to be coming with the 13 personnel this season, and the 49ers are going to have to be ready for it. And I see Jaden Duggar as a potential antidote to that defensively because he's tall, because he's got 35-inch arms, because he has safety experience, because he's got edge rusher experience, because they say that he's going to be a stack linebacker, but all that means to me is that he's going to be in the middle of the defense with the ability to execute jobs of all these various positions that he already has played in. Now, I don't know if he's bulked up enough to be ready to deliver at the NFL level or not. We haven't even hit the mini camp yet. We haven't even come close to training camp. But how Raheem Morris starts deploying some of these flex pieces might make or break the 49ers defense chance to be great moving forward. They've already redone the entire defensive line. I made a whole video about that the other day. They already have, out of an 8 or 9 man rotation, all but Nick Bosa has been replaced for San Francisco. So that's great for the 49ers. But San Francisco is, now at a point where, sure, they're going to be better up front. I expect them to be better up front. It's about how do they adapt on the coverage side against an evolving league that's becoming more and more adaptable and starting to lean towards size with all these tight ends. Well, the 49ers leaned a little bit into size on the back end during this NFL draft with Jaden Duggar and with Ephesians Prysock. They obviously renovated the whole front, and I cannot wait to see what this man, Raheem Morris, is able to work with and evolve on this defense as they try to take that next step forward. All right, I know it's late. I wanted to keep this relatively brief. We'll talk a lot more tomorrow morning. Everybody, thanks for watching.